Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crizzy Books. I'm Crizzy, or Criz, but only my homeboys call me Criz. Folks, welcome to the final episode of Crizzy Books 2024. We made it! If you've been following along on my channel, you'll know that recently I've been posting all of my top 10 lists, all of my favorite things, and my least favorite things from the year 2024. And now we finally reached it, the pinnacle, the be-all, end-all of lists. My top 10 favorite books of the year. I think overall I read about 49 books this year. That might be a little flubbed. I'm not sure, but according to the numbers, it's in that number. 45 at least. The most books I've ever read in a single year in my entire life. This year's been great. I'm sure this channel has a lot to do with it. It keeps me motivated. I read so much good stuff this year, it's not even funny. My all-time favorite books list, which I don't think I've actually put on this channel yet, has grown and changed and evolved significantly just based on things that I read this year. So it was kind of difficult to put this list together with so many good things, but I've done my best. One thing that I wanted to do for this list was really the only rule was to keep it to one book per author. There are several books that I read this year that I think could probably be on this list, but aren't because I had to pick one from that author. And so those are the ones that are making it. Yeah, that's really the only rule. But let's stop wasting time and let's get into the list. So here they are, my top 10 favorite books from the year. But before we start at number 10, there is one that I just had to give an honorable mention because I think it really is that good. People should read this book. The hype is real for it. I think that everything else I liked just a little bit more. But I still think that this is great. It's Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. By Larry McMurtry. This is the gigantic, epic Western novel about a cattle drive, basically. There's a lot more to it than that, but one of the great things about this is the character work here. If you are a big character fan like I am, that's where this book excels. You will care about so many characters in this and what they're doing. On top of that, you have this Western setting, so there is some very bleak and brutal events that take place, and just, it's all very, very good. It's very realistic. You'll fall in love with the people that you're following, yeah, fantastic book. Can't recommend it enough, especially if you're not really into the Western genre. I think that this would probably turn you into a fan. The hype is absolutely real for that book. Okay, let's get into the actual list though. At number 10, we have The Troop by Nick Cutter. I've been talking ad nauseum about how much I love this book. I think it's been on like every list of horror books that I've read this year. I think it's awesome. Really disturbing, really grotesque, really well written with great characters. Creepy, crawly. Did not enjoy most of what happens in this book, which is why I like it so much. I love the premise. I love everything about it. It's a very Lord of the Flies-esque type of tale. Tons of paranoia and just sheer terror of what's going on. Very excited to read more Nick Cutter in the future. I've heard great things, so I can't wait to read what's next. At number 9, Tender is the Flesh. This is another book that I won't shut up about. I hope to shut up about it this year. Tender is the Flesh is really great. Super disturbing, dystopian future where, spoiler alert, you can eat people. You're allowed to eat people. Cannibalism's legal. It's a very scary world that these characters live in, and I think what's scariest the most is how accepted what they're doing actually is. Yeah, it's gross and messed up, and I really liked it. It's really good, and it has a lot to say about humans and human nature, and the things that we do, and how we kind of do things that are crazy without batting an eye. Highly recommend it. Very, very good. At number 8, we have Dracula. This book surprised the hell out of me with how much I liked it. This is one that I've been putting off for a while because it's old, and old doesn't always tend to be boring, but it usually is. And don't get me wrong, there are several moments throughout this book that I would call boring. Absolutely. But overall, I love this thing. I'm obsessed. I will talk about Dracula any chance that I get because I do think that it still holds up. When this book is good, it is so good. It just nails so many aspects of like the vampire tale, and I know that's kind of like the granddaddy of them all, but I think that it does things for its age, it is still working on a level that modern vampire stories aren't doing. I love the setting. I love the events that take place. I love how it's written. This is written in diary and letter entries from different characters' perspectives. There's great characters in this. Dr. Van Helsing, one of the best characters I've ever read. I loved it. This book, while not being perfect, I still think is so great, and I love it. Like, it's an all-timer for me now. I adore this. It's reignited my passion in vampires and vampire stories, and yeah. It is the best. At number 7, we have The Long Walk by Stephen King. This is a dystopia where there is a competition every single year where 100 boys can compete in the long walk. The long walk is exactly what it says. It's a walk. They just start walking on the road. And if you stop, you die. And the last person alive wins the long walk. And that's it. And we just follow our main character and all of the other characters around him while he's participating in the long walk. Fantastic book. I'm a big Stephen King fan. I've read, 20-ish of his books, which is not a lot, but still, this is up there with some of the best that I've ever read. And this is a really early work of his, and I think that it is a huge standout in everything that I've read of his so far. The character work is really good. It's really brutal, sad, can be hard to get through at times. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. At number 6, we have Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I attempted to read this book 10 years ago. Attempted and failed. Could not get through it. Couldn't really understand what I was reading. I'm older. I'm wiser now, I think. And I loved it. I thought it was great. For people who love this book, I understand why. I think that this book was probably the book this year that had the most like meaning to it. There's a ton of like symbolism and just below the surface. Like, there is a main story happening, but there are things that you should definitely like read between the lines on all throughout it. And it's been a while since I've read something like that, and this was just, yeah, I mean, it's great. This one, kind of like Dracula, I can't say is a perfect book. There are parts of it where it was losing me, and I'm kind of like, oh my god, like, geez Louise. But overall, the main story that's happening and everything that's kind of below it, all of the things that you can really dissect and talk about. There are entire communities online that will just talk about this book and what it's about and what it could potentially mean. And I think that that's incredible. And for it to be a Western, and an incredibly brutal Western, I mean, you could almost classify this book as a horror book at times because of what is going on in it. I love McCarthy. I love his writing. And I think that this is, while probably not my favorite of his, still just like I get it. I totally get it. Like, this is one of the greatest novels ever written. Definitely one of the greatest ones that I've ever read. Not my favorite, but I think that it's amazing. I really do. One of the best endings to a book I've ever read. Loved it. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeehaw, partner. Pew, pew. At number 5, we have Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Mr. Philip K. Dick. If you watch my channel at all, you'll probably know that I'm a huge dickhead. And man, did I like this one a lot. I'm a big fan of Blade Runner, so obviously I wanted to read this, and it was way more and way different than what I expected it to be. I enjoyed the hell out of it. So weird. It has that patented, dick weirdness, and it's a lot more philosophical than I thought it was going to be, and just really out there. And he does sci-fi in the way that I love sci-fi, which is like, what the hell is going on? How did you come up with this? I like this. Very trippy, very cool story, a lot of like really cool world building details and things like that. Oh boy, we are getting into the real heavy hitters now. At number 4, we have The Call of the Wild by Mr. Jack London. Incredible book. I'm a sucker for dogs, but my God, this book is so good. The story of a domestic dog who gets kidnapped and becomes a sled dog and learns to just rise above and be the leader of the damn pack and to get more in touch with his primal side. Learning the law of club and fang, and yeah, this book is so good, and I really loved it. It really resonated with me a lot, and with my life and my experiences in life, and everything like that. I thought that it hits the nail on the head, and it's really great. Another one of these older books that I wasn't sure was going to be any good, and I think that it is fantastic. It's perfect. I love it. At number 3, we have Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I've seen the movie Rosemary's Baby, and I think that that's really good. I was not prepared for how much I was going to love this book. This is a very domestic horror tale of a woman who gets pregnant. You can go from there about what happens. In case you don't know, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's so good, everything that happens. There's so many subtle details in here that if you aren't paying attention, you'll miss, that lead up to the end. And just everything that's involved, this whole thing, this psychological trauma that's happening to this woman and all of these just weird people, it all culminates into this ending that I think is maybe the best ending to a book I've ever read in my entire life. I think this book is fantastic. It is one of my favorite horror books ever. I cannot and will not shut up about how great Rosemary's Baby is, and how, if you are a fan of horror at all, you need to read this book. It is great. At number 2, I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This was the second book that I read this year. And here we are at the end of the year, and it is my number 2 on the list. This book has stuck with me through all of that. This book was edge of my seat. Read it in a few days because I loved what was going on in it so much. Psychological horror. I'd never really read anything like it. And it really did kind of open the door, because prior to this, I hadn't read a ton of horror. So I wasn't really familiar with what was out there, or, how you could write horror in different ways. And this one really did show me something different and something weirder. And I loved the feeling of just being a little confused the entire time. I like that. I enjoy the weirdness and the not really understanding what's going on. You are being kind of psychologically tormented just like the characters are. And yeah, I just loved it. It's a pretty divisive book. I think you either love it or you hate it, but I'm definitely in the I loved it camp. And at number 1, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. If you had told me at the beginning of the year that when I put my list of the top 10 best books that I read this year, that my number 1 would be a nonfiction book written by a former Nickelodeon star, I would have told you to go f*** yourself. But this book hit me in a way that I think nothing else really did. I can't sit here and honestly say that anything else I read this year had this strong of like an emotional and personal impact on me, because it felt very like I could relate to a lot of what was going on in it. Her life and everything that's happened to her is obviously way more extreme and up here. But like I have similar situations and a great understanding of what she's talking about. And the story aside, her writing is so good. There is not an ounce of fat on this book. It is so to the point and giving you all the information that you need and keeping you interested and moving forward with what's going on in her life. And she's completely brutally honest about things. She doesn't pull any punches. She doesn't bullshit you. A majority of memoirs that I read are not this good. In fact, none of them are. They're mostly padded with crap and details that don't matter. They repeat themselves constantly. It's like they're trying to find a way to pad out the page count so that they can justify charging you $30 for it. This one doesn't do that. She doesn't do that in this. This is great. Everything that she says matters. It's awesome. This is like the most perfect nonfiction book I've ever read. I like completely relate to her like on so many things. Yeah, it's great. It was 5 stars all around. I love this book. It's my favorite nonfiction book I've ever read. Fantastic. But there you have it. So there you have it. Are you satisfied? You bloodsuckers? You got it. You got all the lists. Not really. I think I have like 2 more to go, but I don't know when I'll put those out. The year has come. The year has gone. We are done. I am done talking about these books. I don't want to talk about any of these books ever again. I'm just kidding. Yes, I do. But here's to 2025 and a new year and new books to read and things to explore and hopefully some new all-timers that I can put on a list. And I hope to see you next year when I do it all again. What were your favorite books that you read this year? Let me know in the comments. What do you plan to read this year? What are you reading right now? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and as always, thank you for watching. Goodbye and Happy New Year.